21-year-old girl just sent the tennis world into a frenzy. And nobody saw this coming. Stop and think about this for a second. A pre-tournament press conference. Not a Grand Slam final. Not a prestigious award ceremony. Not a particularly historic milestone. Just a standard pre-tournament presser. The kind that usually makes even the journalists yawn while waiting. That video pulled in 171,000 views. Now for comparison, Novak Djokovic, the man who has dominated tennis for 2 decades, with 24 Grand Slams to his name, whose every cough on court becomes a headline. His press conference only pulled in 80,000 views. Aryna Sabalenka, the reigning world number 1, a multi-Grand Slam champion whose forehand is powerful enough to make opponents rethink their careers. 9,000 views. Read that back slowly if you need to. 9,000 views. Meanwhile, that other girl, with no Grand Slam titles, ranked outside the top 30, whose name many casual fans haven't even heard, pulled in nearly 20 times that number. Her name is Alex Eala. She is 21 years old. She is from the Philippines. And she isn't just playing tennis. She is forcing an entire industry to wake up and rethink everything it thought it knew about how sports stardom works. Experts are no longer calling her a rising star or a talent to watch. Those phrases have been left behind. They are using a very specific, very heavy term. The biggest draw in women's tennis. Not the best player. Not the highest ranked. The biggest draw. The person who puts fans in seats, who crashes servers, who makes tournament organizers worry about crowd management before a match even begins. And on that specific point, in 2026, Eala's case is truly difficult to argue against. This isn't a story about luck or a YouTube algorithm acting weird. This is a story about an athlete creating a type of gravitational pull that tennis rarely sees. And when it does, it's usually a sign of something much bigger forming. If you want to understand why this matters more than even a Grand Slam title in the modern sports economy, you're in the right place. Pro Tennis 360 will break down this entire story for you, layer by layer. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any future breakdowns, because this story is very, very long. 171,000 versus 9,000. When the numbers say it all. In the world of professional tennis, ranking is the language everyone understands and respects. You're in the top 10, you're revered. You're in the top 5, you get priority scheduling, you're surrounded by media after every match, and sponsors line up at your door. You're world number 1. You're the person the entire industry builds its marketing schedule around. That has been the logic governing tennis for decades, and it has worked quite well. Until Alex Eala showed up and began shattering it in ways no one was truly prepared to witness. At the 2026 Australian Open, she was ranked outside the top 30. Not a top seed. Not a defending champion at any major event. No Grand Slam titles in hand. A player who, by traditional tennis logic, should have been placed in the developing, keep an eye on category. Yet, her press conference pulled in 171,000 views. Sabalenka, holding the Grand Slam trophy, whose every forehand is a declaration of power, called one of the most dominant players of the current generation, had only 9,000. Djokovic, with the entirety of Grand Slam history behind him, had 80,000. Eala surpassed them both. The importance here isn't just the absolute number. It's the meaning behind that disparity. When an audience voluntarily clicks on a pre-tournament press conference, they are telling you clearly, psychologically, this is the person I want to hear speak. This is the person I want to follow. This is the person who has something I don't want to miss. Rankings cannot fake that. A PR budget cannot buy that. It is the market talking in the most direct and transparent way possible. And here is what is truly catching the eyes of analysts. That disparity wasn't a fluke. This wasn't one video blowing up because of an erratic algorithm. This pattern appears consistently across events, across platforms, and across different geographical markets. It is the audience telling you something very clear about who they came to see. And in this business, the person they came to see is a commodity more valuable than any ranking number you can place next to someone's name. From the Philippines to the Rafa Nadal Academy, the journey no one dared to believe. To understand why Alex Eala creates this kind of effect, you need to know where she came from, not just purely geographically, but the actual journey of who this person is and what she had to overcome to stand here. She grew up in the Philippines, a country with a deep passion for sports, but no tradition of elite-level tennis. There was no pre-built WTA infrastructure, no generation of players who had paved the way, no template to follow for how someone from here could reach the peak of this resource-heavy individual sport. And then she was sent to Spain to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy, one of the most fiercely competitive environments in the tennis world. This isn't just a regular academy. This is a place where the standard is set by one of the greatest champions in the history of the sport, where every day you must prove you deserve to be in the room. Eala grew up far from home, far from family, and far from her familiar language, in an environment where many junior talents arrive and break under the pressure. She didn't break. She won a junior Grand Slam. Then she began the hardest journey in tennis, the transition from junior success to the actual WTA main tour. This is where the story ends for most junior champions. The road from potential to actual results on tour is a meat grinder, and most don't make it through with their promises intact. Names that a decade ago were called the future of tennis, most have quietly faded into obscurity. Eala made it through, and when she defeated Iga Swiatek, the reigning world number one at the time, what people remembered wasn't just the score or the match result. They remembered how she handled that moment post-match. No exaggerated emotions, no performing reactions for the camera, no victory lap stories on social media. Just the composure of someone who understood what they had just done, and also understood that this was just one step in a very long journey. That kind of behavior, maturity in a defining moment, is what gets remembered. It builds a specific type of loyalty that cannot be manufactured by a PR strategy or a social media calendar. Market power. Southeast Asia, the market of 700 million people that tennis failed to tap. This is the part that keeps executives from the WTA, ADP, and global tournament directors up at night, not out of worry, but out of a mix of excitement and the frustrating realization that they missed this for far too long. Southeast Asia is one of the fastest growing sports consumption regions on the planet this decade. Digital penetration is exploding at a rate that mature Western markets can no longer match. Social media engagement in this region, relative to population, is among the highest in the world. The appetite for live sports content, especially content that feels personal and identity-driven, is increasing every year. For years, tennis as an organization tried to figure out how to reach that market without much real success. Tournaments were held in the region. Marketing efforts were launched. But there was no real cultural touchpoint. No one the market could look at and say, this is our person competing at the highest level in the world. Then Alex Eala appeared. And the difference is that she didn't reach that market in the marketing sense. She is that market, competing at the highest level, winning, and possessing a personality that transmits through the screen in a way people want to follow. When a Filipino fan buys a plane ticket to fly to Australia, literally flying to another country, just to sit in the stands and watch her play, that isn't the behavior of a regular sports fan watching a good player. That is the behavior of someone witnessing their cultural representative compete at the highest level of an individual sport with global broadcast reach. That is identity being represented. And in the modern sports economy, identity moves faster, further, and creates deeper loyalty than almost anything else you can build with a marketing budget. Market analysts have talked about this moment for years, that whichever region produces the first truly breakout elite sports star, that region will explode commercially in a non-linear way. Tennis is having that moment now, and the person creating it is the 21-year-old girl from Manila. Comparison to legends. Why experts are using the name Manny Pacquiao to describe her. When tennis analysts, people who have spent their entire careers being careful, measured, and avoiding hyperbole, start using Manny Pacquiao as a point of comparison for a WTA player, you know the conversation has officially left normal territory and entered a realm they don't have a ready language for. That's why they have to reach across to boxing. Because in boxing, specifically in Pacquiao's story, they find the closest template for what is happening. Pacquiao at his peak wasn't simply a talented boxer. He was a national event in the Philippines. When he fought, an entire country literally stopped. People went home early, the streets were empty, and shops closed so the vendors could watch the fight. An entire nation of over 100 million people reorganized its life schedule around one person's schedule. And commercially, at his peak, he was ranked alongside Roger Federer in total income from prize money and endorsements, a comparison no one dared think of when Pacquiao first started out. Beyond that, there is another comparison being mentioned, and this one is actually more relevant because it's within tennis. Sania Mirza. Mirza wasn't the most technically gifted player of her generation. She didn't have the highest number of Grand Slam titles, but she was a cultural figure who used tennis as a stage to represent a massive community in a country with a complex history with sports and gender. Today, she has nearly 13 million followers on Instagram, 5 million more than Carlos Alcaraz, and nearly as much as Alcaraz and Sabalenka combined. That is the legacy of someone who transcends pure sports stats and becomes something larger. Tennis experts are saying, not cautiously, not conditionally, not with the usual hedge clauses, that Eala's ceiling on that dimension is even higher than Mirza's. That is a massive statement from people who have spent their careers being wary of big statements. And they are making it based on the data sitting in front of them every single day. Technique and on-court truth. Make no mistake, she isn't just a social media phenomenon. This is an important point to state clearly because there is a very common trend when an athlete goes viral. People start to doubt their actual quality. She's only famous because of the fan base. She's only being hyped by the media because of a good story. When you look at the actual numbers on the court, she doesn't deserve this much attention yet. That is a very natural reaction and isn't always wrong. Sports history is full of examples of people famous for reasons outside their actual performance. With Alex Eala, that isn't true. Her tennis has a real quality that stands alone without needing any supporting narrative. Her hand-eye coordination is rated by coaches and professional analysts as exceptional, not good for her age group, or impressive for a player from a non-traditional market. Exceptional by absolute WTA standards. Specifically, her ability to take the ball early and redirect it before the opponent can reset their position. This is a technique that changes the geometry of the point in a way that creates structurally difficult problems to solve. It's not just flashy for a highlight reel. It is a real weapon, and players ranked significantly higher than her have struggled to find an answer for it in actual matches. In 2026, the numbers speak clearly. A record of 10 wins and 6 losses in the season leading up to Indian Wells. A ranking climb of 16 spots to reach a career high of world number 31 at the end of February. Being seeded for the first time at a WTA 1000 event. These are the numbers of a player competing and winning at a high level consistently, not an influencer occasionally playing tennis for PR reasons. She entered Indian Wells with a first round by thanks to that ranking, something many players spend their whole year striving to achieve. And here is what is truly important about the timing. Usually, when an athlete has a media profile larger than their performance ranking, it's a sign of a story that will end poorly. But with Eala, both things are happening simultaneously and are reinforcing each other. On-court results are improving, and the off-court profile is exploding. That is a rare kind of dual momentum, and when it happens, it's usually a sign of a career about to enter a completely different phase. Real-world impact on the industry. When tournament directors have to rearrange logistics for a top 30 player. This is where the story of Alex Eala becomes interesting in a very real and measurable sense, not just abstract analysis of cultural significance or social media influence. We are talking about people who have to make specific logistical decisions with specific budgets and specific responsibilities to their fans and TV partners. Tournament directors in the Middle East and Southeast Asia are not people who usually speak generously about players. They speak through schedules, through court assignments, and through marketing budgets. And they are publicly comparing Eala's drawing power to Manny Pacquiao. That is the language of someone seeing the data in their spreadsheet and finding no other way to express it. Attendance patterns around her matches are creating literal and specific logistical headaches. Crowds are exceeding what the venue infrastructure was designed to handle. Organizers are dealing with situations they weren't prepared for, because a player ranked outside the top 30 is creating a demand for seats, for security, and for crowd flow management that is usually only associated with top seeds in a Grand Slam quarterfinal or semifinal. At the Australian Open, the scenes around her matches were described by coverage teams as wild. Long lines that have no logical explanation based on ranking alone. A Filipino fan presence, so large and organized it felt more like a concert turnout than a tennis crowd. And then there is Novak Djokovic, who has seen everything in this sport, who after 24 Grand Slams you'd think would be hard to impress, who is usually very careful about what he says publicly about other players. He called the wave of fans around Eala a good problem for tennis. Read that again. Djokovic is saying that the fan base of a 21-year-old Filipino player ranked 31st is a good problem for the entire sport he has dedicated his life to. When that man says your fan base is a good problem, you have entered a completely different category than promising young player. Indian Wells is the next battle, and the expectation from those watching closely is that the Filipino support will appear in massive numbers once again, and will continue to create the logistical headaches that this tournament has never had to prepare for with a player at this ranking. Social media environment and the attention economy. Why Gen Z and millennials choose ELA on their FYP. There is a truth about sports media this decade that tennis executives have been slow and sometimes painful to learn. The generation of fans that will shape the commercial landscape of the sport for the next 2 decades does not make its decisions based on history, based on Grand Slam counts, or based on a ranking list the tennis establishment respects. They make decisions based on what appears on their For You page at 11 p.m., based on what their friends are reposting, and based on which athlete has a personality that transmits through a phone screen and creates the feeling that you want to follow that person as a human being, not just an athlete. Alex Eala is a native of that environment. It isn't that she is trying to adapt or hiring social media consultants to learn how to make content. She understands that environment intrinsically because it's the environment she grew up in. Short-form video content, real-time engagement with fans, behind-the-scenes access, creating a sense of proximity, the ability to turn a moment on court, a forehand winner, an expression after a crucial point, a moment with a fan post-match, into a shareable cultural event with a social media lifespan much longer than a standard match highlight. Her personality transmits through the screen in interviews in a way that translates perfectly to the modern attention economy. Depth, authenticity, and a warmth that one analyst described with a simple but accurate sentence. Her smile lights up the room. It sounds like a gentle compliment, but in the attention economy of modern sports media, warmth and charisma are not minor assets. They are the difference between a viral moment and content that disappears after 24 hours. Coco Gauff has built a template in recent years showing what a young women's player with true mainstream crossover appeal can look like: commercial opportunities, cultural visibility, the ability to reach audiences who don't usually watch tennis. According to analysts tracking in real time, Eala is pulling comparable attention in specific markets and outperforming Gauff in raw engagement metrics within Southeast Asia. The ranking gap between them is real. Gauff is a Grand Slam champion and a top 10 player. But the viewership surge surrounding Eala doesn't behave like the viewership surge of a player ranked 31st. It behaves like something operating on a completely different logic, a logic the sport of tennis is still trying to figure out how to read and respond to. The future and the potential. 21 years old, top 31, and the so-called ceiling no one can define. This is the part where almost every expert following the Eala story agrees, even if they might disagree on many other things in tennis. The consensus is short and clear. Her ceiling is very high, and currently, no one is confident enough to put a specific number on that ceiling. That in itself says a lot. In a sport where people are usually very comfortable with predictions and projections, the caution in placing limits on Eala is a form of respect in its own right. Eala is 21. In women's tennis, 21 has a very specific meaning in terms of athletic development. Physical development still has plenty of room to grow. Strength, endurance, and recovery speed all continue to improve at least until the mid-20s with proper training. Technique at 21 is still being refined in ways that at 26 or 27 you no longer have the same flexibility to change. Match experience at the highest level, the kind of experience that teaches you how to manage pressure, read an opponent, and adjust mid-match, is being accumulated every week, and the rate of accumulation at 21 is faster than at any other stage in a career. And the tactical patterns a player builds between ages 21 and 25 are what will define their career for the next decade. If the results on court continue to trend up the way they are, more deep runs at major events, more wins over top 10 players, the kind of consistency that converts a 31 ranking into 15, then 10, and potentially higher. The combination of performance and influence will create something the modern women's game has never seen in this form. Not just a great player with international fans, but an athlete who operates as a social movement backed by one of the most passionate sporting nations on the planet, competing at the peak of an individual sport with global broadcast reach and a generation of fans watching her on every platform in an inseparable way. Experts aren't saying this cautiously. They are saying it plainly, with data backing them up. And the current data supports that framing by every metric they can measure. This isn't just a tennis story. It's a story of cultural power. Look back at everything just presented and put it into a simple perspective. 2 years ago, not a single serious tennis expert would have looked at the WTA rankings and said, "This person from the Philippines will pull in 20 times the press conference views of the reigning world number 1 at the Australian Open." That was not a prediction anyone dared make, and if they had, they would have been seen as unserious. Yet that is precisely the situation the tennis industry is looking at now, in 2026, and try to figure out how to respond to strategically. Alex Eala is no longer just a tennis story. She is a viewership story, a cultural story, an economic story about what happens when a massive, long underrepresented market finally has someone to follow at the highest level. And apparently, she is also a crowd management problem, the best kind of problem you can cause in this industry. What she is doing is proving, vividly and indisputably, that in the modern sports economy, ranking and influence are no longer the same thing and don't necessarily move at the same speed or follow the same logic. You can be outside the top 30 and still be the person an entire tournament wants on their poster, in their primetime slot, as the centerpiece of their marketing campaign. You can not yet have a Grand Slam title and still pull in 20 times the press conference views of the person with the most Grand Slams in history. That happens because she represents something larger than herself, for tens of millions of people who are watching, and for the first time, seeing themselves represented at the highest level of an individual sport with global reach. That is something that cannot be bought with a marketing budget, cannot be faked with a PR strategy, and cannot be shortcut in any way. It happens when the right person, at the right time, with the right story, meets a country with a history of sports passion ready to follow that person to the ends of the earth. Eala's story is just beginning, and the next chapters will be written on the world's biggest courts in the years to come. If you want to continue following deep analyses like this, about the players who are truly changing how tennis works, not just playing the game, then Pro Tennis 360 is the channel you need in your subscription list. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because the next breakdowns will be even more interesting than this one.